Thanks for selling your car to Carvana. Here's your check.
Whoa, when did I get here?
What do you mean?
I swear it was just moments ago that I accepted a great offer from Carvana online. I must have time traveled to the future.
It was just moments ago. We do same-day pickup. Here's your check for that great offer.
It is the future.
It's the present and just the convenience of Carvana. Sorry to blow your mind.
It's all good. Happens all the time.
Sell your car the convenient way to
Carvana.
Pickup times may vary and fees may apply.
Una silla de masajes puede parecer extravagante. 8 configuraciones diferentes, intensidad ajustable, además es calefaccionado. Y se siente tan bien. Sí, una silla de masajes puede parecer extravagante. Y 2, bueno, aún más. Pero cuando esas sillas de masajes vienen con un auto, se vuelven bastante prácticas. El nuevo Volkswagen Tiguan 2025 con funciones premium como los asientos delanteros con masaje disponibles. Solo parece extravagante.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Big Mad True Crime, where we get big mad over true crime. I'm your host, Heather Ashley, and today's case is out of Coleraine, Northern Ireland. Small talk sucks, so let's dive in. Coleraine is a small town of about 20,000 people tucked up at the top of Northern Ireland. It's known for having more churches than your average UK town, and not just any churches. One of them, St. Patrick's Church, is believed to date all the way back to the 5th century. Legend actually has it St. Patrick himself founded it, the guy behind St. Patrick's Day and all of the shamrocks. But this story doesn't start there. It actually starts at another church in town, Coleraine Baptist Church. That's where two families, the Howells and the Buchanans, worshipped side by side. From the outside, they looked like typical church-going couples, just regular parents raising their kids and trying to do life right. Colin and Lesley Howell were in their early 30s, already juggling 4 entire kids between 9 months and 6 years old. Colin was a dentist who specialized in implants, and people had some mixed feelings about him. Some said he was charming and friendly, while others thought he was manipulative and a compulsive liar. Everyone agreed that he did seem deeply religious, though. He met Lesley when she was training to be a nurse, and she was the complete opposite of Colin. She was ambitious, driven, full of warmth, the kind of person who made an impression for all of the right reasons. She was thoughtful, funny, and just good. Then there were the Buchanans, Trevor and Hazel. Trevor was a police constable, also in his early 30s, and Hazel was a Sunday school teacher in her late 20s. They had 2 kids, an 8-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. This episode is brought to you by IQBAR, our exclusive snack and hydration sponsor. IQBAR is the better-for-you plant protein-based snacks made with brain-boosting nutrients to refuel, nourish, and satisfy hunger without the sugar crash. IQBARs are my go-to easy afternoon snack every single day, and I know that it's going to be good for me while also being ridiculously delicious. Seriously, they are packed with clean ingredients like magnesium, lion's mane, and more, so I know that I can enjoy some chocolate without any guilt. I mean, seriously, there is no gluten, no soy, no artificial sweeteners, and no GMOs. And their flavor game is on point. I am on a lemon blueberry kick right now, but their mint chocolate chip and seasonal flavors are amazing. Honestly, though, I have never had an IQ bar that I didn't immediately want more of. And I'm also obsessed with their IQ mix sticks. There's zero sugar and it hydrates with electrolytes, so you honestly just feel like you're just drinking flavored water. I have at least one of them a day, and the difference is night and day. There's actually an ultimate sampler pack you can get that includes the IQBAR's IQ Mix and their IQ Joe. IQ Joe is an instant coffee, and I was a little bit nervous about that, but once again, IQBAR never disappoints. The flavors are incredible, and the convenience is unmatched, especially when you're just busy during the day. You just tear it open, drop it in your water, and you've got some pretty amazing coffee. IQBAR has become a staple in my daily routine, and I have no doubt that you guys are going to love them just as much as I do. With over 20,000 five-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQBAR's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their ultimate sampler pack includes all three. And right now, IQBAR is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQBAR products, including the sampler pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text BIG to 64,000. Text BIG to 64,000. That's BIG to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. The Howells and the Buchanans grew really close. Their kids played together, they went to swimming club together, and like I said, on the outside, it looked picture perfect. But behind the scenes, something much darker was already brewing, and eventually, it would tear both families apart. On the evening of May 18th, 1991, Lesley Howell headed to a local tanning salon. She thought her appointment was for 6 p.m., but when she got there, the staff told her it actually wasn't until 7 p.m. Lesley said she'd grab her tea and then come back, and it seemed like a simple little mix-up, at least on the surface. At around 6:15 p.m., she was spotted at a gas station just outside of Coleraine. The woman who saw her knew Lesley personally and said something felt off. Lesley had pulled up to the diesel pump, and it looked like she was about to put the wrong fuel into her car. The woman rushed outside to stop her, but by the time she got there, Lesley had already caught her mistake. Still though, something just wasn't right. Lesley was moving slowly, almost like she was in slow motion. She even staggered a little bit. The woman leaned in to smell her breath, wondering if maybe alcohol might explain it, but there was no smell. She was still concerned though, so she called Colin to let him know what she had observed. According to court records, he called her back about 15 or 20 minutes later and told her that Lesley had made it home safely. Lesley did go back to the tanning salon at 7 p.m., just like she said she would. A staff member said she seemed to be in good form. She went in for her 25-minute session, but when she hadn't come out by 7:30, an employee went to check on her. They found Lesley asleep in the bed. A few minutes later, she came out seemingly fine, and before leaving, she booked another appointment for May 20th. She then smiled and said, "See you Monday." However, she would never make it to that appointment. At around 8:30 a.m. on Sunday, May 19th, Colin Howell called a church elder named Jim from Coleraine Baptist Church. He told him Lesley had been missing all night and that her car was gone too. According to court records, Colin said he suspected Lesley had run off with Trevor Buchanan. He claimed she left the house in the middle of the night, came back later with Trevor, and after an altercation between the two men, Trevor drove off. Colin said Lesley then passed out on the sofa after drinking and taking a sedative. But when he woke up later, she and her car were both gone. In her place was a suicide note left on the kitchen floor. He asked Jim to check near Lesley's late father Harry's house because that's where he thought she and Trevor might have gone. And there's a story there, too. Harry had died suddenly less than 2 weeks prior. He'd collapsed at the Howell home and never got back up. No autopsy was done, and his death was assumed to be heart failure. It hit Lesley extremely hard, and she started treating the pain with alcohol and sedatives. Jim went over to the Howells' house, and Colin showed him the suicide note. Jim then drove out to Harry's property to look around, but he didn't see any sign of Lesley or Trevor. He then went back to the Howell home and gave Colin an update. That's when Colin floated a new theory that maybe Lesley and Trevor had boarded a ferry to Scotland. Jim called the local ports to check, but there was no record of Lesley's car boarding a ferry the night before. After that, Jim left the house to attend the church's Sunday morning service. But old Colin wasn't giving up yet. Just before 9 a.m., he called one of Harry's neighbors, a man we'll call Arthur, and asked him to check around the property. Arthur agreed and headed over to Harry's, and not long after he left, his wife got a call from Hazel Buchanan. They were friends and had even been on a bike ride the previous day. Hazel said that Trevor hadn't come home after going out with Lesley the night before. Arthur's wife walked straight over to the Buchanan's house and found Hazel in what was described as a distress state. Meanwhile, Arthur had arrived at Harry's house and he looked through the garage window and did see Lesley's car. The driver's door was wide open and he thought he might have seen some movement in an upstairs window. Thinking it might be Trevor and Lesley, Arthur shouted at them to catch themselves on, which basically means to get a grip, and then drove back to the Howell house to report what he had seen. Hey guys, I am so excited to tell you about our next sponsor, Koyuchi. Why, might you ask? Well, you guys know that bedtime is serious business for me, and Koyuchi is in a league of their own when it comes to bedding, bath, and home products. Their organic crinkled percale sheet set is the key to cooler, healthier sleep all year round. I'm in a fun little hormonal stage in my life, which means that I go through waves of heat in my sleep, and these Koyuchi sheets have been incredible. They are naturally cooling, which has been a night saver, while also being free of any weird wizardry stuff like toxins or chemicals that could seep into your skin, because nobody has time for that. I mean, we put way too much effort into our skincare to have our bedding throw us off our game. Oh, and because their organic crinkled percale sheets have a subtle crinkle effect, you don't have to worry about ironing them or any of that other mess, and they get softer every single time you wash them. Koyuchi doesn't just stop at sheets though. I also have the best robe I have ever owned from them, and I honestly just want to wear it as an outfit. I want to keep it around my body at all times. I mean, they even have crib sheets, bath towels, and table linen, so excuse me while I go make a shopping list. If you want healthy, handcrafted luxury bedding that lasts a lifetime, you need Koyuchi. Get 15% off when you visit koyuchi.com/bigmad. That's koyuchi.com/bigmad to get 15% off. koyuchi.com/bigmad. At around 12:45 p.m., Colin called Jim, who was just finishing that morning service. This time, he asked Jim to go back to Harry's house and said that he would provide a set of keys to get into the garage. Jim agreed, but decided to bring someone with him, which was actually an off-duty police officer named David. They went to Colin's house, picked up the keys, and then drove out to the property again. Jim went around to check the back and unlock the garage, while David looked around the rest of the property. As soon as Jim opened the garage door, though, The smell of exhaust fumes hit him like a slap in the face. Jim looked inside the car window and saw Trevor Buchanan completely unresponsive. Jim called out for Officer David, who stepped in to check for any sign of life, but there were none. He backed out, shut the garage door behind him, and then called the on-duty police. When officers arrived, they noticed that the car had been backed into this garage, the front end facing the door. The passenger side was flush against a workbench, which was too tight of a squeeze for anyone to get out of. The driver's side had just enough space for someone to slip between the car and another workbench. The driver's door was wide open, and so was the window. The keys were still in the ignition, turned to the on position. The cab light was glowing, and one of the side mirrors had been pushed forward toward the garage door. At the back of the car, they found the rear offside light cluster was broken. There was a vacuum hose resting loosely inside the exhaust pipe. It wasn't sealed though, but the pipe did have a dark ring around it, like something had been clamped there earlier. The trunk was shut over the hose, and the surface was covered in a fine layer of soot. When they opened it, that's where they found Lesley. She was lying on her back with one end of the hose positioned near her head. A cassette player was beside her, headphones were still over her ears, and inside of it was a gospel music tape. 3 framed photographs were scattered around her. 2 were turned away, but the one facing her showed Lesley in her nursing uniform standing beside her mother. None of the photos in there, however, included any of her children. Trevor was in the driver's seat, but the positioning was just off. He was slumped low, almost flat against the base of the seat. His right hand rested on the wheel, his left leg was curled in the footwell, his right leg was partially outside of the vehicle and bent into the hinge of the door. Officers did not think that it looked like someone who had just settled into this garage in this car to die. They thought maybe he had changed his mind and tried to get out before the fumes took hold. It just looked like maybe he had been trying to escape. A forensic medical officer came to the scene and found that both of the bodies were cold and already showing signs of lividity. That suggested that they had been dead for at least 12 hours, so the bodies were taken for autopsy and police began their official investigation. But from the beginning, things were already a mess. According to court records, only 8 entire photos were taken of this garage. 3 included Lesley, and just 1 showed Trevor. That was it. Police seized the vacuum cleaner hose, the cassette player, the gospel tape, and the 3 photographs for forensic testing, but the only item tested for fingerprints was that cassette tape, and even that came back with nothing. Someone had to have put it in. The car itself was never tested for prints, and the problems don't stop there. The pathologist in charge of the autopsies never visited the scene or looked at any of the crime scene photos. They said there was nothing suspicious documented in their exam. Lesley had no visible injuries, while Trevor had a few small abrasions on his knees. They described them as of trivial nature. The pathologist listed the cause of death for both of them as carbon monoxide poisoning from car exhaust fumes. Toxicology samples were sent off, but the results took some time. Hey guys, this is for all of my renters out there. If you're paying rent every month and getting nothing in return, it is time for me to introduce you to Built, a rewards program designed for renters like you who deserve to earn something from their largest monthly expense. So let's talk about it. By paying rent through Bilt, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But it doesn't stop there. Bilt is about making your entire neighborhood more rewarding. You can dine out at your favorite local restaurants and earn additional points, get VIP treatment at certain fitness studios, and enjoy exclusive experiences just for Bilt members every month. Bilt is turning a monthly expense into an opportunity to earn rewards and discover the best that your neighborhood has to offer. Your rent is finally working for you. Earn points on rent and around your neighborhood wherever you call home by going to joinbilt.com/bigmad. That's joinbilt.com/bigmad. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Before the day was over, officers went to speak with Hazel Buchanan. Strangely, they interviewed her before Colin, even though he was the one directing people to search for Lesley and Trevor and exactly where they were found. But Hazel did have a lot to say, like about how she and Colin had a history and not the kind you keep in a photo album. Hazel explained that she and Lesley would sometimes take their kids to the swimming club together, and occasionally, Colin would go instead of Lesley. That's when Hazel started noticing that Colin was attracted to her. One night, Colin called Hazel while Trevor was at work, and after that, things escalated into a full-blown romantic and sexual relationship. According to Hazel, the affair lasted through September of 1990. And then Lesley found out, which meant that Trevor found out too. Both couples entered counseling through the church. Hazel said the affair ended after that, but the damage had definitely been done. Neither Trevor nor Lesley had fully come to terms with anything that had happened. As for the night Lesley and Trevor went missing, however, Hazel told police that she went for a bike ride with a friend, Arthur's wife, and went to bed at around 10:15 p.m. She said Trevor planned to stay up a bit longer. She was later woken up sometime between 3 and 4 a.m. by voices in the house. She recognized Trevor and Lindsay's voices, but couldn't make out exactly what they were saying. Hazel said she didn't get out of bed because she and Lesley were clearly not on good terms, so she just went back to sleep. She woke up again at around 5 a.m. and noticed that Trevor wasn't beside her or anywhere else in the house. She looked out the window and saw that his car was parked in front of the house instead of the garage, which was something he didn't usually do. But Hazel didn't immediately call anyone to ask where Trevor was because she said she didn't want to cause alarm. After speaking with Hazel, officers sat down with Colin, whom they noticed had a fresh injury on his forehead. They asked him about his relationship with Hazel, and he gave a similar timeline to hers, saying the affair ended in the fall of 1990, but Colin actually went into a little bit more detail. He explained how Lesley found out about what was going on and said she'd overheard a phone call in late September where he'd made plans to meet Hazel. At first, like any shitbag, he denied the affair and then lied and said it was a platonic relationship with no sex involved because gaslighting is apparently a sport. Colin told officers that Lesley had attempted to take her own life after finding out about the affair. The couples went into counseling, meeting separately with a church elder who we're going to call Glenn. The sessions lasted about 4 months, and during that time, Colin admitted to Lesley that the relationship had indeed been sexual, like she said the first time, and he denied it. Okay. Even after all of the counseling, though, the two of them were still arguing about the affair because that was Lesley's right. Lesley often threatened to leave and move to London so that he could be free to have Hazel. Colin also talked about how Lesley changed after her father's sudden death 2 weeks earlier. He said she'd been drinking more and taking sedatives that she'd found in his medicine cabinet. She'd then pass out on the sofa wrapped in a quilt. Colin said that on May 18th, Lesley left the home at around 11 a.m. for a hair appointment and got back at around 2. She prepped meals for the weekend because she was a queen, then left again at 5:30 for her tanning appointment. When she learned it wasn't until 7, she stopped for gas, came home for a quick second, and then headed back out. During that quick stop at the house, Colin said she seemed very calm and downplayed the mix-up at the gas station. He told police she came home later with a 3-liter case of wine and started drinking on the sofa. Colin claimed Trevor showed up at their house at around 11:15 p.m. He said there was an argument and that Trevor grabbed him. During the struggle, Colin said he got a scratch on his forehead and told officers that he eventually restrained Trevor and that Trevor apologized and then left. Colin said he went to bed at around 1:10 a.m., leaving Lesley passed out drunk on the couch. When he woke up the next morning, she and her car were both gone, and a suicide note was on the kitchen floor. That's when he called Elder Jim. Regardless of how fucked up that cockamamie story is, police accepted Colin's version without much pushback. No one tried to verify the details, but if they had, they probably would have found that some of it wasn't true. You're shocked, I know. Lesley wasn't home between 2 and her tanning appointment. She was at a coffee shop between 4 and 5:15 p.m., and while I know that's a small detail, it's one that does raise bigger questions about what else Colin might be lying about. After Colin's interview, the suicide note was sent out for handwriting analysis. Trevor's jeans and sweatshirt were also collected for testing. Officers wanted to understand the source of a stain on the right leg of the jeans and another on the left shoulder of his sweatshirt. There is no record of Lesley's clothing being examined at all. While they all waited for the results of these tests, officers followed up with the people Colin had asked to check Harry's house on the 19th. Elder Jim confirmed that Colin called him twice that morning to say Trevor and Lesley were probably there. Jim said he didn't ask why Colin was so sure or why he hadn't just gone over there to check for himself. All he knew was that Colin said he was home alone with 4 young kids, so he was doing what he could to help. Arthur, the neighbor who lived near Harry's house, also confirmed that Colin had asked him to check the property. He went, but didn't see anything suspicious. Arthur also had something else to share, though. He said Trevor came by his house at around 8 p.m. the night before to fix a puncture on his wife's bike. She'd gone on a ride earlier that day with Hazel. Arthur said Trevor looked white and said it was no good before leaving. And at the time, Arthur just, assumed he was talking about the bike. Officers continued trying to build a timeline, which involved speaking with neighbors. The Buchanan's next-door neighbor told officers that at around 3:40 a.m. on May 19th, he was in his bathroom when he heard footsteps outside. He looked out the window and saw a dark-colored car reversing from the Buchanan driveway onto the street. He figured someone was calling for Trevor in connection with work. Officers also interviewed one of the Howell's neighbors and her son. That neighbor said she'd overheard a heated argument coming from the Howell's house more than once, though she couldn't recall any specific dates. Her son gave a similar statement, saying he remembered hearing Colin shouting at Lesley and Lesley screaming back. He couldn't make out the words at the time, but he did remember the tone. Hey guys, when was the last time you truly trusted the seafood you brought home? Whether it was the look, the taste, or where the seafood came from, or how it was caught. I have always loved seafood, but I have also struggled a bit trusting the process. I mean, at least I did before I found Wild Alaskan. Wild Alaskan Company is the best way to get wild-caught, perfectly portioned, nutrient-dense seafood delivered directly to your door, and trust me, you haven't tasted fish this good. Wild Alaskan is 100% wild-caught and never farmed, so you can finally trust the process. Each fish is caught from Alaska, and every order supports sustainable harvesting practices. That means no antibiotics, no GMOs, and no additives, just real fish that support healthy oceans and fishing communities. And Wild Alaskan is frozen off the boat to lock in taste, texture, and nutrients, like those ever important omega-3s that we are all forever seeking. Seriously, you guys, I was stunned when I got my first box. I don't think I've ever seen healthier looking fish. I mean, the color was incredible and it just looked clean. I was a little worried in the beginning about shipping because, I mean, it's fish we're talking about here, but they must be some kinds of experts over there because everything was still perfectly frozen. And the taste was like nothing I have ever had before. The last piece we made was their salmon. And oh my gosh, the texture and flavor was almost magical. I mean, Wild Alaskan has set a new standard for seafood in this house. I have no doubt that you guys are going to love it just as much as I do, but there's also no pressure here because Wild Alaskan is 100% risk-free. So if you're not completely satisfied with your first box, they'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. Not all fish are the same. Get seafood you can trust. Go to wildalaskan.com/bigmad for $35 off your first box of premium wild-caught seafood. That's wildalaskan.com/bigmad for $35 off your first order. Thanks to Wild Alaskan Company for sponsoring this episode. Officers spoke with other people who knew the Howells and the Buchanans in hopes of learning anything more that might be relevant about their personal lives, and one of those people was Elder Glenn. According to court records, Glenn said he first learned of the affair after Lesley confided in him. She told him she suspected something was going on between Colin and Hazel, and when Glenn confronted Colin denied it. But Glenn didn't believe him either. A few weeks later, he went to Hazel and she denied it too at first. I mean, eventually she did confess. After that, Glenn arranged a meeting with the Howells at their home. Lesley confronted Colin, and sometime later, he did admit that the affair had been sexual. This is not exactly what Colin told officers had happened, but no one really seemed to question any of that. Glenn continued, however, saying that after Lesley found out about the affair and the fact that it was indeed sexual, she took an overdose of acetaminophen tablets and drove off. That would be Tylenol. She was found later that day and admitted to Coleraine Hospital, where she had to stay for a few days. Glenn further told officers that he'd noticed changes in Lesley since her dad died. He said she'd been drinking more and that he warned her to cut back. She just seemed to be going downhill and had lost much of her spark. Police spoke to other people who knew Lesley as well, and several shared that Lesley had been acting strangely in the days leading up to her death. Most thought it was because she was grieving and self-medicating due to her father's untimely death. Lesley's brother said that after her father's funeral, Lesley had 3 glasses of wine and was completely incapacitated. When he asked Colin about it, Colin admitted to giving her a pill to help her sleep. Another witness helped Lesley clean out her dad's house and said she was unusually forgetful. She kept asking the same question, "What do you think of Daddy's house?" just over and over again, saying she must have asked me that same question 10 times that day. That same woman also told police that Lesley said Colin was the one in charge of her medication. He'd been giving her pills to help her sleep, despite that being suspicious as all fuck. Officers didn't seem to question it and didn't question Colin further about his alleged control of her pills. Police went on to interview the church's pastor. He told them Hazel once said Trevor was a very ordinary guy and that she wished he'd been a more exciting husband. Two of Hazel's friends backed that up. They said Hazel had really loved Colin and that the relationship between them had been intense. It seemed like at first Hazel may have been drawn to Colin because he was different, something new and shiny and exciting. He gave her this adrenaline rush that she didn't know she was missing, but over time, it had turned into something more and she fell in love with him. She wanted to be with him. That's why she started the affair back up again in March of 1991, just 2 months before Trevor and Lesley were found dead. In case you didn't catch that little fact means that Hazel and Colin had lied to police about their affair being over, but for some unknown reason, officers never asked them to clarify their infidelity lies. Officers did speak with one of Trevor's co-workers, and he said that Trevor had confided in him about the affair and had asked for some advice. Then, the week before he died, Trevor seemed to be in a very bad form, enough to concern the co-worker who told a church leader to keep an eye on him. That same co-worker said the last time he saw Trevor was on May 17th, when Trevor invited him to attend the evening service at Coleraine Baptist Church that upcoming Sunday. But Trevor never made it to that service. Trevor's sergeant also gave a statement. He said Trevor had requested annual leave earlier in the year to sort out family problems. When he returned, he said he'd been working too much and needed more time with his family. The sergeant told officers that Trevor had seemed well down for a while, but had recently started to come back up again. As the investigation continued, police learned more about Colin's financial situation, and it wasn't pretty. By early 1991, dude was in serious debt, and his dental practice was struggling. He'd even borrowed 10,000 euro from a friend shortly before Lesley died. At the time Lesley died, they had no money in their accounts. While police continued digging, the test results started to come back. A forensic handwriting expert reviewed the suicide note and concluded that it had been written by Lesley. Testing on Trevor's clothes revealed human blood on the back left shoulder of Trevor's sweatshirt, along with an unidentified substance. The gene showed nothing significant, and no further testing was done. Toxicology results showed Lesley had a blood alcohol level of 117 milligrams per 100 milliliters, which was well over the legal driving limit of 80. She also had 3 sedatives in her system: temazepam, diazepam, and nordiazepam. Trevor had 0 alcohol in his system, but he did show a presence of temazepam. According to the pathologist, the drug and alcohol levels were within therapeutic range. In their view, they didn't contribute to the deaths. It was carbon monoxide that killed them and nothing else. By the end of May, officers were leaning into the theory that Trevor and Lesley had died by suicide, that they couldn't take the pain their spouses had put them through and decided to end it together. But clearly, not everyone agreed. Officer David met with 2 other officers to talk through the case, and according to court records, he had serious concerns like the rest of us. In fact, he didn't believe it was suicide at all, because duh. But let's listen to his reasons. For starters, this scene at Harry's garage didn't make any fucking sense. The bodies, the car, the positioning, it all felt wrong. David knew the cab light had been on and that one of the side mirrors had been pushed forward towards the garage door. But those details didn't show up in the 8 photographs taken. By the time the scene was documented at all, someone had turned off the light and pushed the mirrors back into place. There's no reason to do that. But let's keep going. In the photos, the trunk lid was wide open, but when David and Elder Jim first arrived, the trunk was closed and resting on top of the vacuum hose. So officers were making decisions based on photos that did not reflect what the scene had actually looked like. David raised even more questions, asking why did Colin have a fresh injury on his forehead? Why was the same sedative in Trevor and Lesley's systems? Why did Colin immediately suggest that Lesley and Trevor would be at Larry's house, of all places, together? And why was he the one giving Lesley her medication? David pointed out that Colin had a history of lying. They already knew he had lied about his affair with Hazel ending. Dude was in debt. His dental practice was failing. His father-in-law had died suddenly under questionable circumstances, to say the least. And then Lesley just 2 weeks later. To say shit was not adding up to a normal situation would be an understatement of the century. David suggested interviewing one of Lesley's close friends, who we're going to call Susan, and the other officers actually did follow up here. According to court records, Susan told them that Lesley had confided in her about several different things. That she suspected Colin was still having an affair with Hazel, that he was giving her sedatives, but it was okay because Colin looked after her, and that his business was in such bad shape that she couldn't even withdraw money from the ATM. Lesley also told her that her father had left her a sizable inheritance, money that was meant for her and the kids. And then Susan shared something else, something chilling. She said Lesley told her that recently Colin had dropped an electric cable into the bath while she was in it, shocking her. Susan told officers that she brushed it off like it was an accident at the time, but after Lesley died, it wasn't looking so much like an accident. Police did not follow up on that. They didn't ask Colin about it, nor anyone else for that matter. If they had, they would have found 2 more people who knew about the story. One of Lesley's friends said that in the spring of 1991, Lesley called her and said, "I'm telling you this in case something happens to me." She told her what happened and said Colin had begged her not to tell anyone. The friend urged her to go to police, but Lesley said that she felt okay knowing that both she and Susan knew what had happened. After Lesley died, this friend considered reporting it, but Susan said that she already had, and they assumed at the time that that was enough. Another person who heard the story was Lesley's sister-in-law at the time. She said that after Harry's death, Lesley called her in a panic and said, "Colin has tried to kill me." Lesley begged her not to tell anyone, so she didn't. The police, however, never reached out to any of those women. On May 29th, officers learned that Colin had put Lesley's car up for sale. It had only been 10 days since Lesley and Trevor had been found dead inside of it, and this sick little fuck was slapping a for sale sign on it. According to court records, police eventually interviewed Colin and Hazel again. This time, they did admit that the affair hadn't actually ended in 1990. It had merely paused, they said, but it picked back up in March of 91 and continued until just weeks before Lesley and Trevor died. No one asked why they lied to police in the first place, and zero effort was made to confirm when it actually ended. After the interviews, the scene visits, and what little forensic work had been done, officers prepared a report for a coroner's inquest, which isn't a criminal trial. It's a formal proceeding meant to establish the facts of a death, when and where it happened, how it happened, and what the cause was. No one is found guilty or innocent. The goal is just to determine the circumstances and not assign blame to anyone. The officer's report included statements from Colin and Hazel about their relationship, the marriage counseling, and their versions of what happened on May 18th and 19th. It included Elder Glenn's account, the gas station witness, the Buchanan neighbor who saw the car at 3:40 a.m., and the discovery of the bodies by Elder Jim and Officer David. It also contained the suicide note, the 8 garage photos, and both post-mortem reports, but there was no mention of post-mortem photographs. Some key interviews were missing as well. Susan's statement was not included, and neither was the testimony from Trevor's coworker or several others. In the inquest report, the police said they believed that the deaths were brought about as the result of an affair by the spouses of the victims initially over the period of March through October of 1990, and indeed afterwards, even up until the time of the suicide incident. Neither of the suicide victims, despite reconciliation attempts by the church being made principally by Elder Glenn, could come to terms with their spouse's infidelity. Lesley had made previous suicide attempts and was most likely the motivating factor in both of them taking their lives. On May 14th of 1992, the coroner's inquest was held. The officer's report was submitted as evidence, and sworn testimony was heard from several people, including both Colin and Hazel. But just like there had been some issues with the investigation, there were issues with the inquest as well. Colin and Hazel's shifting stories about when the affair ended were never brought up. Concerns about the case, Officer David's doubts, Susan's story about the bathtub, Colin's financial issues, and his potential motives also weren't raised. In the end, the verdict was that both Lesley and Trevor completed suicide via carbon monoxide poisoning. They did this because they'd been emotionally upset by difficulties in their marriages. After the inquest ruling, Colin was awarded Lesley's estate as well as her father's. He also received payouts from several life insurance policies. In total, he walked away with more than 414,000 euros. He used the money to clear his debts, repay the 10,000 euro loan from his friend, pay off his mortgage, and grow his dental practice. Everything was working out for Colin and for Mrs. Buchanan. They kept the affair going until the summer of 1996, until Hazel met someone new and left to be with him. By the end of that same year, Colin had moved on too. He met a woman named Kyle, an American divorcee with 2 kids who was studying Irish at a local university, and those 2 got married in May of 97. But in the summer of 98, everything changed. One night after dinner, Colin told Kyle there was something he needed to say. First, he admitted that he'd been unfaithful in his first marriage with a woman named Hazel. Then he told her something worse. He said he had killed his wife Lesley and Hazel's husband Trevor. He confessed that he'd staged the entire thing to look like a suicide pact, that Lesley and Trevor had taken their own lives because of the affair. Colin begged Kyle not to tell anyone and begged her not to leave him. Kyle was terrified in that moment, thinking that if she said no, he might kill her too, so she did stay. She and Colin went on to have a total of 5 children together, on top of the 4 he had already had with Lesley. They raised them all together. And for 21 years, Kyle kept Colin's secret. until one day she just couldn't do it anymore. She had to tell someone, and once she did, everything came crashing down on Colin Howell. But what that entails, we'll have to wait until part 2. For any updates on this case or any other case, check out my Instagram profile at @TheHeatherAshley and join me there for when we go live randomly to talk about, honestly, whatever is on your mind, true crime or anything else. If you don't like listening to ads on podcasts, which I hear is not a fun thing to do all the time, we offer an affordable solution on Patreon for just $2 whole a month. Your episodes are totally ad-free. We also have an additional tier for extra episodes and stuff like that if that tickles your fancy. And if you have a case you'd like to hear covered on Big Mad True Crime, share it with us on social media, anywhere you can find us, because all cases are covered by listener request. I'll be bringing you a brand new case a week from today. Just kidding, it'll be part 2 of this one. I fucked that up. Anywho, I'll be bringing you a brand new case. Damn it, I did it again. I'll be bringing you part 2 of this case next week, and I can't wait. But until then, we out. Okay, let's do the hot take. First things first. Okay, working in true crime, I've seen several cases involving exhaust. Generally speaking, the windows are not down, ever. Doors aren't open. Ever. And I've never seen somebody who wanted to kill themselves using exhaust in the fucking trunk. Yeah. Ever. You're telling me that there was a perfectly good passenger seat. There were back seats. And you want me to believe that this woman who had 3 personal photos near her, none of which included her children, and many of which were facing away from her, was like, no, the trunk is for me. No. Just no. No. Also, the car was literally on. If Trevor needed to adjust the vehicle so that he could escape, possibly even save Lesley, he could have simply put it in drive. Hear me out. Put it in drive. He could have done that. Also, just speaking to kind of the science behind crime, statistically speaking, when someone sends you to the place where a body is found, they're the first person you should look at. If someone is concerned that the love of their life, their wife is missing, some shit has gone down, generally speaking, you could not pay them to sit fucking still. But you're telling me that this innocent motherfucker, and innocent is just doing the most work right now, allegedly, was like, oh my gosh, let me call 2 different people. He had to be getting so fucking frustrated that nobody was finding anything at all. Fucking insane. Fucking insane. Jeez. Shitty police work drives me fucking nuts. I understand. Back in the day, I don't know shit about Irish police work. I don't. If we were talking about US, I would have so many more things to say. Laws are different in other countries. I truly do not know what their reputation is for investigations and shit like that. This was atrocious, though. Science, not great back then. Our crime scene analysis has come leaps and bounds over the last decade, let alone 2.5 decades. So we have to judge it through that lens as well. But doesn't piss me off any less. Okay. I'm going to lose my voice, but I'm going to record part 2 because I can't stop now. I love you guys, and you'll hear it next week. Okay, love you, bye. Oh, and CrimeCon's coming up. Come see me. I'll be there. It's in Denver. Whee!